Welcome, everybody, to another edition of The Teams. Once again, a big shout out to our sponsor of the segment, Southside Pizza. As always, go down and grab yourself a slice of pizza, maybe ahead of tonight's game or tomorrow night if you're not at the G for the big blockbuster. It's Spud's game, and if you haven't seen as well, there's a lot of promotion at the moment, in particular regarding the Spud's ride. Um, our very own Jake will be riding tonight at 11 o'clock. As you can see, it's a 24-hour ride, so it's going all through the night. And big shout out to everyone who's got involved. There's a lot of people within the club as well. So yeah, we've got Jake and we've got Ollie, who's our MC. So not our Ollie joining us here tonight. But yeah, there's a lot getting behind. It's such a good cause. Spud's round is so important to the club, to the AFL world, and to the general public. I find just such a really worthy cause and really worth highlighting. Mental health, particularly men's mental health, and I guess the stigma around not speaking out when you're going through a tough time, and also the importance of reaching out to your mates. I think Danny Frawley is sort of shows that. I mean, obviously didn't know him personally, but used to get stuck into the bounce every Sunday night, and it's just not the same without him. But he was always such a larrikin and always came across as so together and so funny and just an all-round good bloke. So personally, really, really shattered when we got the news that he had passed. And yeah, I just wanted to really highlight the importance of this game, and hopefully the players can come out to play. It's a big Friday night blockbuster, and hopefully we can do it for Danny Frawley and what this round means. Welcome, Ollie and Evan. It's a big game. It's a nice build up coming off a win. Carlton coming off a pretty solid loss, similar fashion to how we went against Adelaide
Mm.
over there. How are we feeling?
Good. I mean, it's nice, always nice to come off a good win. Like, I don't know, it's nicer coming in here, you get some good comments. Everyone's up and about a little, especially going into a game that's quite big, like this one is. Not only the spectacle of Spud's game and how much it means to the club and the community, the AFL community, but in terms of our season and Carlton season as well, it's quite an important game, a season-defining game.
Yep, yeah. As you say, on a personal level, it's much more fun coming in here for the live stream, coming off a win, getting ready for a nice big game, an event game, compared to a bit of a smashing against the Lions last week. So, no, very exciting. Looking forward to the next week or so. Hopefully, we can start looking at getting our season on real good track because we've got a couple of important weeks coming up.
Absolutely. Let's do this. Absolutely. I can't wait. I'm very excited. It is a different vibe when you're coming off a nice win. Also, a little unexpected for me. I wasn't expecting a 10-goal win in that fashion. So, really excited by that. Just before we do get stuck into the teams, as I mentioned with the Saints ride, we do have the comment here to those who are able, if you can, to donate to the Spuds game. As I said, with the Spuds ride, a lot of us are getting involved, and are really looking forward to hearing how Jake goes. And I think even Sammy, who's on the segment, I think I saw somewhere he was joining Georgia Love. I could be wrong. But then we've got the likes of Rue and Cozzy, and I think it's just really, really good to get behind. So if you can and you're able, the comment there, you can copy the link off the comment, and it will take you to the page to donate. So now get stuck into the teams. I, for one, am really excited that we don't have any forced changes. It's a really good position to be in. A little disappointed that Wood didn't get up, but at the same time, it is what it is. Like if you didn't quite get over, well, that's how it is. So the other exciting thing is that Filippo is named. Really crossing my fingers that he gets over the line, and he's not a late change this week. Did have a feeling that might be the case last week, and it was annoying to be proven right. So this week I'm going to say he's going to make it into the team, and it's really interesting. Obviously, Toby's unlucky to go out as sub, who didn't even get a crack as sub last week, which we'll talk about a bit later on. But yeah, what are your sort of thoughts looking at that? Yeah, obviously Toby, the obvious out, considering he didn't play a game, play minutes. But how are we feeling with that?
Bit disappointing to see him not kind of get on, because I felt like watching the game, or being at the game especially, it was like, I don't know, it was kind of not boring, but through the first two or so quarters, then the end of the third quarter started to ramp up and get exciting. And once we were out by that, 35, 40 point margin, I would have thought that he'd been given a run at some stage. But it was one of those games that kind of, the way we played, it kind of just crept up, and we didn't dominate the whole game, but we just dominated enough that we slowly just extended the lead and we were able to stop them. So um, I can also understand why they didn't potentially, just because of, I don't know, could have got caught up in the last quarter sort of, I don't know, the little run we went on, and everyone was performing well. But at the same time, there was no VFL game on the weekend, so I'm not sure how that works in terms of the running. I know if he's subbed on, he'll have to do a bunch of running after the game, but I'm not sure how it works if he doesn't get a run. But yeah, I think it's necessary for him to have at least a week back in the twos, just get a bit of form.
Yeah, absolutely. There's definitely both sides to it. Um, in some ways, it would have been nice if we could be one of those teams for once that gets to, ice one of our star players, get, I don't know, Steele or maybe not McRae, because then he wouldn't have got 38, but, one of those players in the midfield or forward, maybe Brad Hill, he wasn't having a flash game and he's getting up there. So ice him for a little while and get, Toby in. But at the same time, we were already testing so many kids through the midfield forward there that don't want to mess around it too much. And certainly, I wouldn't have wanted to see Boxall lose 20 minutes of game time for Toby to come in. They've both had a bit of the limelight now, so hopefully they can keep at it soon.
Yeah, and knowing Ross Lyon, I almost wonder if it was a bit of a cheeky sort of dig, like, you all had a go at me last week when I subbed a player before halftime, so now I'm not going to use my sub at all. So
Yeah.
I kind of liked it, and it kind of worked in terms of, I think Ross Lyon in the coach's box at the end with Garcia kicking that goal, just having a little smile to himself.
Yeah.
I quite liked that, which leads me into what we're introducing this week as a bit of a news segment with the man of the match. And great week to start it, because it's very hard to choose. And Ross Lyon was within his rights to not sub, in my opinion, for the fact that there was no forced sub, A, with injury, and B, with form. So Ollie and Evan, who were your picks for the man of the match last week?
Yeah, I think I stole the one that we all kind of wanted here. But yeah, it's always great having no injuries after the game and being able to really look at the positives rather than sort of playing catch up. So I picked Wilkie, our general down back. It's so good to see that back line all functioning sort of as it has as a unit again. He had 14 marks, kept Tracy to no score whatsoever, 6 disposals. He was really efficient. And had 7 score involvements from fullback. So to be able to be so involved in that transition and actually getting a score on the board from all the way back there, we don't often see that as part of his shutdown game. So he just had an all-round perfect defensive match right there. Don't know what we'd do without him.
Yeah, he stood up. Like, I don't know, the threat of Tracy was quite worrying pre-game, but he just was kept so quiet. I think it's so hard to pick a man of the match in a game like that where you've got the Wilkies that you mentioned. I've gone with Jack McRae, which is probably an obvious one, but you've still got guys like Owens and Sharman up forward who had incredible games. So, you've got too many players to pick from. But McRae had completely stuffed the stat sheet. He had 38 touches, 8 tackles, 14 clearances, and 10 score involvements. But apparently he should be in our midfield. So, you can go figure. He's still a class midfielder. I'm pretty sure he's only 30 years old. So, we've still got at least 3 more years of Jack McRae, touch wood, pending injury. You hope he keeps his form and stays healthy. But just his impact on the game, he was everywhere. every second time I look towards the ball, he doesn't necessarily have the ball, but he's always in and around it when he's in the midfield. He's always hunting it. So it wouldn't surprise me to see a big 40 possession game or something coming up in the next few weeks.
Yeah, he's been huge. It's just been so nice to recruit someone who's just come in and have an immediate impact like he has. It's just been a breath of fresh air, particularly in the midfield where we've really struggled. So yeah, I thought that was really good to see as well. And I feel like I can't really split Wilkie or McRae, and it seems silly to go with any other player when they were sort of the two very dominant, even though you could argue there was 20 others. So I think I will stick with the back line, given that we're heading into Spud's round. It makes sense, Golden Fist and all. So I will do a special shout out to Liam Stocker, because I noticed one of the supporters during the week, they put a little comment saying how back in the days we had Sean Dempster and they used to get Dempstered. How about we say when a player gets stockered? And I absolutely would love to get behind that. That's a great suggestion. So Bolton was absolutely stockered. He had 5 super coach points total, which is just insane when you think he played a full game. So huge credit to Liam Stocker. So he may not have been man of the match, but he gets my special mention. And I agree with you both with Wilkie and McRae. I think now, speaking of how well we did play, in terms of we sort of went over the outs, but I now want to just discuss the sub. Like I do like to dissect that a little bit, and I think this week in particular is going to be really tough to call who will be the sub. Again, Jones is sort of MIA. Don't really know what's going on with him, but maybe it is a bit hard for him to get back into the team. Regardless, he's obviously listed as an emergency, but yeah, he's not there as our go-to. So who are we picking? I guess you'd think it will come off someone off the interchange. So what are you thinking or hoping, or what are we leaning towards?
I think there's a clear, like you say with Jones, there's a clear shift to youth at the moment. Considering our current interchange consists of Collard, Philippou, Boxall, Hall, and O'Connell, and we've got guys like Garcia on field. Burns is still, I didn't realize he's only 23. I thought he just seems like he's been around for longer than that. Windy's young, Machito's young. So I've got a great crop of youth coming through, and it's hard to pick, like we were talking about before we came on air. It's really hard to pick out of this team because they've all been playing really well. You hope out of form, I hope it's not Boxall. I feel like it could go either way of Philippou being first game back with not much of a run, or potentially O'Connell, because I feel like he could plug a hole if someone went down with an injury. He could probably go forward and play a role. He could go into the defense, and we can shift plays around if we needed a midfielder. So yeah, it's a real toss up.
Yeah, it's definitely a good problem to have compared to what we've had sometimes, where there are clear people on the field that just aren't putting up a good enough fight. But I'd probably second that. I reckon it'll be Philippou there, mainly just because he hasn't had that run in the VFL. We've had other players come back from injury, but get a good 2-3 games to get sort of their legs moving. But I reckon 2/3 to less of a game might be best suited for him, considering he's had good fitness. They talked a lot about preseason and how much he'd been training the house down, but he hasn't had nearly as much of practice as the rest. So probably best if he starts there. But it's hard to tell. We are a little bit samey on the bench there, so it might move around a bit. I definitely reckon you're right with Jones, is that he's probably been told in his contract negotiations last year that he's there to fill a gap when the kids aren't ready to fit in there. So he's on a smaller contract now, I believe, and I reckon we'll start seeing the same thing with players like Webster, who did have a good weekend, but we've got kids coming through to take their place now.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting one. And I was just sort of bringing up a few comments that are similar in terms of Burns, a few sort of saying maybe he's on the outer and either out or sub, which I think last year he did play a couple of games as sub, but yeah, maybe a little left field in terms of he's not on the interchange, but I actually liked his game on the weekend playing further up the ground. So maybe I'm on my own there, but I thought he showed some improvement, and I thought he had a good amount of score involvements and set up a few directly with goal assists. So that's just my opinion, but it's really tough for me to pick. I don't want to see Boxall. I'd love to see Pooh name just because I love him and I want him to play a full game. Maybe can he start and then he gets subbed if he needs to? Not sure, but it's really, really hard. I think whoever it is unlucky because it could even be Collard, who I really rate his pressure, and he nicely got on the scoreboard through the help of Higgins on the weekend. So yeah, it's very tough to call, and I'm glad I'm not in the position of the coaches, but it's a good position to be in, and I don't think I've said that too often this year. So, on that, speaking of good positions to be in, our midfield. Now, I know that we've been on their back a little bit, so I have to just give credit where it's due. What an absolute turnaround and absolute amazing response from our midfield as a collective. They were huge, and that is exactly how you want your team to respond. From our captain in Steele, I thought he had a really solid game, and that was really the benchmark for him. That's what I want to see from him every week. Maybe not hitting the scoreboard, that was a bonus. We don't see Steely do that too often, but really nice for him to do that and the boys to all get around him. I think that just sort of showed what the team thinks of Steele. So yeah, really, really just enjoyed seeing him have a smile on his face and even a smile of relief in a way. I think like he sort of had a bit of a monkey on his back this season, in my opinion. And then we've touched on McRae, and then Garcia. He just vindicated Ross Lyon with that performance. That was just really beautiful for him to get on the scoreboard too. I've been wanting him to kick a goal for weeks, so he missed that one like a couple of minutes earlier, or maybe even seconds, and then he got it through the middle. So that was very nice to see. But I'm getting carried away. I could talk all night and not let you boys speak. So, what was your take on the midfield and I guess looking at key matchups against Carlton?
I thought it was sort of a great return, not return to form, but like I don't know, a little bit of an I'm back game for Rowan Marshall, considering Darcy and Jackson. Although Darcy's fallen off a little in the last couple of years with injury, Luke Jackson's someone who usually just has his way with us. So to see Jackson have virtually no impact past the first quarter, and Darcy just, I don't know, I just feel like I didn't see him that much. But Rowe was dominant in the midfield. You know, he got a few ground balls as well. So that was really nice to see him getting around the ground again. And I think he had a chance early on to kick a goal and missed. But, you know, that's just the sort of play you get. If he can get up the ground, he's got the work ethic to then get back to his man and continue contesting. So if we can find a good balance while he's solo rucking between sort of sitting in that 35 to 50 zone when we're going inside 50, which allows him to also shift back into the midfield, like we saw a little bit on the weekend. Hopefully he's back in form like we saw last year, because, you know, we need to show these clubs and these ruckmen, not talking about anyone in particular, why they should come play at St Kilda.
Yes, yeah, I'm sure we'll have the obligatory TDK conversation soon enough. I'll just throw it as well. Just saw Jules's comment about Burns being a walk-in for West Coast team. I reckon if Burns ended up at West Coast, he'd be their captain in about 3 years, the way their squad's looking at the moment. But yes, it was great to see Marshall in really good form there. I think there is a level of our midfield was great. You know, they hit the scoreboard, got possession, dominated clearance, but a good chunk of that was structure. You know, it was we were flooding the clearance with lots of extra players. We were working as a unit. We scared them in a ways, and we were being really tough with their midfielders. So I'll be really interested to see if, you know, we maintain that same midfield form going into this game. Whether that's a matter of, do we use the same strategy twice against another good midfield, or do we just rely on the fact that, you know, McRae and Steele have found some form and we've got some real young guns? So what kind of balance is there between strategy and then just the players able to hold on to their own?
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to seeing how this goes. And Ollie, you mentioned last week that it was the Ross Lyon Cup, and maybe this week it's the Daconing Cup. Am I jumping the gun? Maybe, but yeah, I'm all for Marshall pulling out a big one, just to, a little preview of what it would be like to come join the Saints. Get behind the red, white, and black. I like it. I did just want to touch on Carlton's midfield quickly in terms of Ross Lyon in his press conference mentioned that he didn't tag, which I found interesting because I certainly didn't really see it that way at times. But do you think we go into this game tagging Cripps because he's clearly their dominant A grader? I personally think they rely on him so heavily. So do you think that we try and tag him, or is it a Steele Cripps head to head, which I personally really enjoy? How do you think we'll go about it?
It is always fun seeing those sort of bulls of the midfield go up against each other. I reckon. Well, I reckon we'll probably go pretty similar to last week, where we've got Garcia in there, we've got Steele, who are great tackle players, great pressure players. So even if it's less so a run with roll, it's just if they get possession, be on your toes, ready to tackle every single time. Do not let them have a clean, effective clearance at all. Obviously, Cripps is a double Brownlow winner. He's, putting the entire game on his shoulders many times this year already. And Walsh has been in much better form. But if we've got the capacity to shut them down with or without a tag as far as our group goes. And then hopefully we've got McRae, to go the other way. So it's been a lot more confident in a tough midfield battle than I normally am, that's for sure.
I think we'll talk about it later as well, but with the potential midfield dominance that Carlton has, if you look at the lineup, Liam Stock is listed in the centre with Patrick Cripps. So I think there was a lot of talk because Cripps got the 3 votes last year, and all the Carlton fans are going, oh, but he dominated. He didn't really have much of an impact on the game last year until the last quarter. Now, Liam Stocker was on him until I feel like he got concussed at the end of the game and he might have gone off, but that might be wrong. But if Stocker can play a similar role, he doesn't need to stop Cripps from getting the ball, but what he needs to do is he needs to make it as difficult as possible, because then, like you say, we've got Steele and Garcia who are tackle players who can just come across and lock him down. So if you make it really hard for Cripps to get the ball, yeah, Boxall and Windy as well, like the comment says from Jules, it's like we've got the players that have the tackle pressure and the tackle ability. So as long as you make it hard for him to get the ball, then we'll lock him down every time, hopefully.
Yeah, yeah. Well, he's definitely a hard man to stop, but I personally find like when you can stop Cripps, you can stop Carlton. So I think it does go a long way to us winning. But like you said, we'll touch on it a little bit later on with our Oppo view. Moving on to the forwards, I was really wrapped with the forward line last week too, and there were sort of these little patches where Owens dominated and Sharman, and it was just kind of reminded me of how we ended the season last year with just this really unpredictable forward line. And to be honest, the first half of the game, it was a bit like, if you weren't a Saints supporter, it was, oh my God, snooze fest. This is a horrible game. But you could see what we were trying to do. We just couldn't hit the scoreboard. And that's where I was getting most frustrated, because it was like, I thought we're dominating this, but we've only got 27 points to show for it at halftime. So if you told me we were only going to have 4 goals at halftime, I'd be like, oh no, but they only had 7, which was incredible. And then I think the second half was just an absolute masterclass, as it's been called, and we dismantled Fremantle. It was just really beautiful to watch. It was typical Saints footy. Not only did we shut them down, but we hit the scoreboard. Our forwards were all firing in their own way. And I was kind of looking forward to Wood coming back into the mix. But I really like seeing Caminiti back forward and what he brought. He might not have got a lot of the ball, but I think that he had clean hands, especially in that first half when we were all still a bit sloppy. I just think he looks like he belongs in the forward line. He's probably still on the fringe a little bit. It's not to say if Wood comes back, maybe it is Caminiti who makes way. But what was your sort of take with the forward line and what you want to see coming up against Carlton?
Yeah, like I agree wholeheartedly, especially with Caminiti. Like, he just looked more comfortable and at home, and you could see the relief when he kicked that goal in the last few seconds of the game. He's like, "Thank God, I got something going." Um, I just thought it was pure Cooper Sharma domination. Like, the fact that in the second half of the third quarter and in the start of the fourth quarter, you hear there's an audible like gasp around the stadium when he went towards the ball. I don't know if you could hear that on TV or not, but everyone's like, "Oh, what's he going to do now? Is he going to take a hanger? Is he going to take a big pack mark? He's going to crumb it and kick it over his head like the goal from the boundary." Like, he was everywhere, and that's like the second time in recent memory. The first time being Essendon last year, where he's really taken over a game, and I think that's the sort of great role that he plays, being the sort of second/third forward, where they don't respect him as much as they should, I think. And if you let him get off the leash, he will clunk everything. He's one of the best set shots, if not the best set shot in the league. It just looks clean, and he knows as soon as he's kicked it if it's going in or not. I don't think he put a foot wrong. There was a lot of forwards that did well, so I'm not going to cover them all. But yeah, Sharman just dominating. I'd say he'd be up there. I think he was up there in the coach's votes, so I think he'd be up there in the Brownlow votes for that one as well.
Yeah, it's tough. As you say, we could talk about all the forwards. You know, Higo is second in the Coleman. Can't forget Mitchie, who just had a great game, both on the scoreboard and just forward impact. And Sharman, they all seem like they're just having a blast. And who would think it? As soon as you get the ball with repeated entries and fast clearances into the forward line, they're having lots of fun. So, you know, it's really great to see the forward line connecting and scoring like that, even if most of it was in the second half when we had control of the game. But yeah, Sharman was a great watch in there. And looking sort of forward to the next game, they've got a bit of an odd backline lineup at the moment, particularly because McGovern's been in some of the worst form I've seen of a defender back there. I don't think I've seen a player kick it off the ground to the other team more often in 1 year, but can't look past Wiedering. You know, he's a really solid wall there. So got to make sure we've got, you know, forwards competing and not letting him intercept. Reckon Young could be backline, forward line. He bounces a bit. And Nick Haynes had his best game from this year. Obviously, that first game against Richmond that Carlton played, the round one, was just an absolute stinker by Haynes. The amount of fumbles and stuff ups as soon as Richmond put the slightest bit of pressure on. So that's definitely my thought, is just duplicate that forward pressure, get excited, have fun. You know, that there is by no means a bad backline, but they have crumbled under pressure multiple times this year. And then when they don't have pressure, they keep going. And they're also still one of the worst stoppage defenses. They fall apart in their team defense there. So hopefully Marshall can really prove something down there, knock it down to Higo and Collard, and they can, you know, score plenty off that. So I'm pretty happy with our matchup, apart from Wiedering.
Yeah, I'm really excited to see what our forward line can do. It's just so exciting to watch when they get going like that. And I think, we just kind of have to touch on Cooper Sharman again. It was really sort of funny listening to the commentators because they were kind of having a laugh in a way, comparing him to Carey, which is obviously extreme. But then post game, they had Jonathan Brown and he was like, "Hey, what about me?" So that was quite cool, I thought. It was a bit of a nice compliment there to Cooper Sharman, and that goal he kicked was incredible, and so was his celebration. And there were a few good celebrations that just really added to the atmosphere and I guess the joys of going for the Saints, because it's been a while since we've had a bit of that swagger and a bit of fun, and we've seen it sort of the last half of last year and then bits and pieces this year where we've got it together. So it's just been really exciting. I love players having a bit of personality. And that's also, I think, with Pooh coming back, I think he really can demonstrate that as well. And I'm also interested to see, given it's his first game back, like, does he push forward at all? Does he go straight to the midfield? Where do you think he sits best? Do you just think let's just play him in the midfield because that's where his future lies? Like, what are your sort of personal opinions on that?
Yeah, I'd like to see him more in the midfield. But I love it when he kicks a goal and celebrates and gets the whole team around him. There is no one more pumped on a football field than Filippo after kicking a goal. Like I think he's going to burst a blood vessel when he's celebrating there. So definitely prefer him in the midfield when he's fit and healthy. But as far as entertainment value goes, stick him in the forward line, or even just watch him kick a goal from the center square. Like he can do it all.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head, pretty much. Other than the fact that he could probably, well, you pretty much covered it anyway, that he can play off half forward if he needs to have a rest. But yeah, completely, you've just absolutely smashed that one out of the park.
Perfectly said. Yeah, I think I don't need to say any more. I think we all love Pooh, and he's going to be something special. And I don't love, like, I've just compared Cooper Sharman to Jonathan Brown, but I don't want to keep comparing Pooh to Bontempelli either. But I do like the fact that he's sort of the same, where he can hit the scoreboard and be really damaging like that as well. So yeah, I just love the kid, and I just want to keep seeing him playing, and I wish him best of luck for tomorrow night and moving forward, and hopefully he's through the worst with his injuries and he can start stringing some games together, because we need it as much as anyone. Like, he's just going to make such a difference to that midfield, and I don't want to put too much pressure on the kid, but he's just oozes class and potential, and he's exactly what we need. Moving on now to the back line. Again, I think they continue to be our solid rock, led by our man Wilkie. I think, if anything, Sinclair was maybe a little bit quieter last week, but I also don't know if that's because our midfield was so dominant that our backline didn't really, like, Sinclair didn't have to do as much, as we normally rely on him so much. But I just think, didn't really need to have as much of an impact as usual. Even O'Connell, I forgot he was playing at times, because he just didn't really even have a job to do at times. It was just taken care of further up the ground. But anytime it did go down, what I liked about Wilkie is Tracy wasn't particularly clean at times. So even when you thought he was going to get first use, Wilkie was just right on him, that anytime he didn't have clean hands, Wilkie just bashed it right out of his hand before he could take a clean mark. I was really enjoying that. I'm enjoying Howard being back. I think this backline's starting to look more settled. What are your sort of thoughts? And I guess maybe touching on a few key matchups, given that we'll sort of move ahead to Oppo View very soon.
Yeah, I think you smashed the analysis on Wilkie. He was always there. Like, he was physical, which is a big thing, considering there's a distinct line between being too physical and giving away a free kick. So I think he did that really well. Dougal didn't have as much to do. Amos kicked a couple, he kicked one or two, but he didn't seem as dangerous as Tracy did. And the same sort of lineup this week with the two key forwards. I think they just mostly need to be physical without giving away free kicks, because we all know that Kerno and Mackay love a free kick. So, yeah, just stay physical.
Yeah. I personally, I like Caminiti as a defender. I think he's a good one-on-one defender. But with Howard, Webster, and Wilkie back there, they're just a solid unit. And the way they defend together just makes more sense and seems more solid in that sort of way. So, yeah, great to see Wilkie out there. Obviously, I always love to see a bit of Stocker love as well. Stock is just so reliable, so great, and I love the energy he brings to it. And yeah, to sort of second what was in the chat there, obviously they've got the two pillars of their forward line with Carlton. We got Mackay and Kerno coming up, as you mentioned. And I reckon we match up pretty well there, particularly sort of, as you mentioned before, Alana, before the stream, that if Kerno's a little bit proppy on his knee again. So we'll see how that goes. And as I spotted before, they've only got one player to kick more than 10 goals for the entire season at the moment, and that is Kerno. So not to say if we stop him, we stop everything, but we've got the small defenders who can deal with a Durden type, that can deal with I've forgotten who was the other one that's actually scored more than 5. That's how sort of bad they're going in the forward line, I suppose. Durden and Zach Williams. Is Williams around?
I think he's injured.
He's injured. Yeah. Okay, so then they've really got so few scorers. So don't let their midfield score. Don't let Sam Walsh get a go there. and then just that our backline sort of have a free run at interceptions, sort of thing. So I'm pretty confident of how we line up there.
Yeah, I'm also looking forward to, and I'm not saying that Stocker will line up on Akers, but just for a bit of fun, if you can give him a typical Stocker tackle. Nothing against Blake Akers, I love him, but I just think it would be a bit of fun if Stocker can just lay one on him, just to add salt to the wounds. If we happen to be doing well, I just would like to see that, and Stocker having another good game in general against his old mob would be nice. It's a shame we don't have Paddy Dow playing either, because we seem to have got a few off Carlton, but we did give up Akers, so hopefully he has a nice quiet one, because I don't tend to like our players that have departed us having good games against us. So hope I didn't just moz us there, but like Akers, don't touch the ball.
At this stage, we could have a whole second-hand Carlton midfield. We could have Stocker, Dow, and Carroll in there, and just say, give it a go.
I forgot Carroll.
Just if we get TDK as well, you get a ruckman, so you got the full lineup.
And speaking a bit of Carlton, we'll have a bit more of a look into the Oppo view, I guess now. Or maybe let you guys lead the way. I feel like I've taken over a bit tonight with my excitement ahead of this clash. So, what are your thoughts going into the game against Carlton? We've touched on it a little bit, but as a whole, like how they play, what you're sort of looking forward to, what we have to look out for. How do you think we go about this lineup?
An interesting stat, I think Jake might have mentioned it on the podcast, and I heard it somewhere else during the week, that Carlton, since June last year, have only beaten North Melbourne, West Coast, and Geelong. So Geelong, obviously, you probably hold that one a lot higher than the other two, but they're not in form against any other side in the competition. So, June last year's round 14 sort of mark, the bye weeks. They've only beaten those three teams between now and then. So I can't exactly figure out how many games, probably close to about 20, not quite, 15 maybe, that they've only beaten three sides. They've probably played North and West Coast twice in that time. But it's just something we have to take advantage of. Poor form against other teams, coming off a big loss against Adelaide in Adelaide. They just looked lethargic. They did not look like playing football at all last week, whereas we looked like we were a bit more up and about. The defence was good. And considering the forward stocks for Carlton, the two big keys, and the fact that Kerner, I think Woody mentioned it somewhere in the chat, he got a knock. So, if he's healthy, if he's not healthy, it's a big it's a big game to take advantage of a potentially downside, I think.
Yeah, I think statistically they're still held up by their defense, which I know we sort of feel like we match up pretty well against them. Silvani could be anywhere because of those injuries, but they do still have a solid backline. It's just the fact that they can't score any reliable score at the moment, which is kind of wild considering you've got, two Coleman and a repeat Coleman sort of thing. So definitely, as you say, we've got to take advantage of when we're playing up against them. Hopefully they don't have a big response considering last week, but we can really take hold of them and convince TDK that we're more of a premiership contender than Carlton is, or at least a finals contender. Show them that even though we're a young squad, we have the mindset and we have the strategy to make the most of it. Whereas Carlton at the moment, not to be too down on them, just don't seem to be able to get much out of what they have, would probably be the best way to put it.
Yeah. And interestingly, their defense is quite tall. I think someone mentioned it earlier in the chat, but Wiedering, Young, Haynes, McGovern, Silvani on the bench. Binns is sort of a mid-sized defender. So they've got two small defenders and a lot of taller defenders. So how that works, how that matches up, I have no idea, considering we're quite a small forward line in comparison to their defence. So hopefully we can bring the ball to ground and beat them that way.
Yeah, we
And
definitely need to be smart with our entries.
I don't want to be too rude to them because I feel like as Saints fans we get this plenty, but I feel like they've got a fair few players on their squad that I don't know if I've ever seen before. Like who's Will White? Who's Binns? I know Lord was a high draft pick, I think. Evans pops up. Like there's there's just a few people there where I'm like, I don't know where the impact is going to come from. But, I say that Binns is going to get a career high 30 disposals or
Uh,
something. But, I'm hoping that we're a full squad and they're, 4 stars surrounded by people who are trying their best.
Yeah, I sort of tend to agree with where you're going with that. Like, I feel like their team is based around their key position players and Cripps. So yeah, you've got your key ruck that they've got in De Koning, and then you've got your Wiedering, and you've got your Kerno and Mackay, and then Cripps. They're your 5 like key players. Obviously, Cripps isn't key position, but I'm talking like they're your 5 key players, and 4 of them happen to be key position player. And then after that, it just falls away to me, and I'm a little bit like you, like they're a little bit unknown, and yeah, maybe we'll all know who they are after tomorrow, but hopefully that's not the case. I think everyone still says that about Cooper Sharman, so I really hope that he can continue on from last week. I was really worried when they beat the Cats because I was looking, great, they're just coming into form right as they're about to play us, so typical. So I was actually really relieved when Adelaide did a number on them. So I know that teams like to bounce back, but I am really happy that it's us coming off a 10-goal win and not a 10-goal loss like they are. So
Yeah.
I think that can do a lot for our confidence. And yeah, I think if we can get these sort of key matchups against their key position players, I think that goes a long way. And I guess that moves me ahead to the keys to winning this game against Carlton, and how you think we get the job done against a team that, for mine, I think their ladder position doesn't really do them credit. But then when you've spoken about the teams they've beaten, maybe it does.
Hmm.
They're just a very strange team because they did pretty well in the finals last year, and yeah, they were obviously touch and go to make it, credit to us, but they did play finals. We didn't. Would have thought they would have gone up in that trajectory this year, which they haven't done as of yet. But yeah, how are you thinking we get the job done against them?
Yeah, I think we're coming up against 2 very different teams in the last couple of weeks. So Freo are the slowest team of the competition, and Carlton, from memory, are the fastest. So it's going to be a very different game than last one, I'd imagine. But I reckon in some ways our way of beating them is pretty similar actually, in that forcing them forcing them to go slow, not allowing that fast transition by not allowing them to get the initial clearance, clogging it up, getting first touch of it, and then forcing them to have to try and chip kick through our defense. Whether that's a one-on-one defense like we were sort of doing more last week, or zoning off like we normally do, but just forcing them to take their time and allow us to cut off some poor disposals because their disposal efficiency isn't all that flash. So I'm hoping we respond in a similar way to what we did last week by just not letting them move it, not letting them get any transition. That would be what I'd be really hoping to see. If we see Sam Walsh dashing off halfback or Sard running through the middle and booting at 60 meters, that's when we know we're not countering their strength.
Yeah, and you speak about the ball movement, which is it's so hard to defend a ground like the MCG because it's such a big, wide ground with wide wings. I think that's something our defense can absolutely handle, especially under Ross Lyon. It's almost a situation where I feel like if it's not working, we don't blow it up, but we go for almost a shootout where we spread the ground on offense, use our foot skills to sort of I guess, pierce through their taller defense. Because if we get your Hall, Collard, Higgins, those sort of guys, Garcia that are, the smaller forwards, even Sharman's got a great lead on him. Those sort of guys to just lead up at the ball rather than kicking it to a big pack because that's where we know Carlton are going to dominate in the air. So, yeah, spread the ground, open it up because if we get a sort of the kick, mark, handball run and carry sort of situation, if we can open it up like that, it just creates so many more options going forward that I don't think their defense can handle. And like we've mentioned all night, don't let their midfield get on top, because if their midfield gets on top, then we're cooked.
Yep, definitely gotta watch that midfield. Absolutely. For me, I think they're a bit of a what I'd call like a momentum team. Once they get going, they can be very scary and a little hard to stop once they get their game going. So I'm really keen to just make sure that we're aware of that momentum shift when it happens and just shutting it down as soon as possible, because they can get a run on and they're quite capable of doing that and really tearing a team apart when they get that game going. They just haven't got it going enough so far this year, and I just want that to continue against us. We just need to be on the ball, so to speak, and yeah, just not let them get carried away. I think they get like the crowd get behind them, even though it's our home game. I'm still expecting a lot of Carlton supporters to get to this game. I think both fan base are expecting to get up and win this, if I'm honest. Like it's a real sort of 50-50 with both teams thinking that they can get the job done. So yeah, it's going to be a real big one. I'm really looking forward to it. Another Friday night blockbuster, which still annoyed that last week everyone said the game was terrible, whereas I just feel like we just don't get any of the credit. Whenever we win, it's always, oh, the opposition were no good. Oh, it was boring. How about the credit of us? Like, we still kicked 14 goals, I think it was, a goal off 100 points. Like, that's no snooze fest. I'm sorry.
Mm.
So, speaking of the margin, like the score, what do you think the margin will be? I'm assuming you're going to tip the Saints.
Yeah.
So how much pie?
I've got St Kilda by 15 points. I think it'll be a close game that, a lot of people predicted it'll be a close game, I hope, because we're reasonably evenly matched on the ladder and so on. And I think Rowan Marshall just towers up TDK and hits him with a sort of, if you can't beat him, join him sort of mindset, I reckon.
Nice. Yeah, fingers crossed. Yeah, I'll probably second sort of what Tux is saying in the chat about Carlton there. I feel like our game against Freo didn't teach us anything about who St Kilda are or who Freo are, because it's just been so on and off for both of us throughout the year. I still don't know what to expect from any of the sort of three teams mentioned there. So I reckon if we can get a good win here, it might go a much further way to convincing me of who sort of the real Saints footy is this year. I'm going to tip the Saints, which I'm a little bit too practical sometimes. So that means something there. I don't think it will happen, but I would absolutely love for Higgins to win it on the siren again. I think that would be hilarious if in the last minute there he rocks up, we're 3 points down and he kicks us ahead. Same as how we nearly kicked them out of the finals last year. I think that would be a good fun. So let's go for that. Higo twice in a row.
That was epic, and it would be epic. We might all not survive it again, I don't think. But yeah, I'd love to see Higgins be the match winner again, just as much as I'm sure the Carlton fans all enjoyed that last year. So I agree, Evan. Let's do that again. But I did tip a closer margin to Ollie. I did tip us by 18. A nice, comfortable 3-goal win would be nice. Thank you once again. I think we'll wrap it up now, but I did just want to reiterate, if you can get behind Spud's ride, as I mentioned, Jakey's doing his ride tonight at 11 p.m. and a lot of others are getting on board too. And I think if you can get to the game tomorrow night, get behind the boys. If you can't, reach out to a mate, see how they're going. No one should go through mental health alone. I think we all probably either have gone through it or know someone who has. So really important to check in on your mates and reach out as well if you need to. So yeah, if you can get to the footy with your family, friends, get together and watch it in front of a big screen somewhere if you can't get to the game. But yeah, really, really important round. It's going to be a huge one. Thank you, everybody, for joining in. Thanks again for all your comments. And as always, Ollie and Evan, it's been a really good chat. I know you both are getting to the game tomorrow night, so enjoy, and hopefully it's a nice Saints victory and we can do it for Spud.
Cheers.
Looking forward
Go
to
Saints.
it.
Thanks everyone, and go Saints.
Go Saints.
Go Saints.